Today is Monday, August 3rd. It's 3 p.m. I'll call the committee to order and ask for any additional roll call. Kayla, can you help with that?
Yes, sir. David McAlpin,
Here.
Katie Campbell, Natalia Bowser. Here.
Sorry,
Alan
I thought
Doan.
my audio was on, Kayla. I'm here. It's Katie.
We saw you. Alan Doan,
Here.
Cohen Mercer,
I think,
and he is excused.
okay, good. So we have a quorum of the committee present and we're ready to proceed to business. I'm going to read a public participation announcement for those members of the public joining today. For each action item, public comment will be taken immediately after the item is introduced, followed by committee questions, motions, and discussion. The public members will have an opportunity to comment at the end of the meeting as well on any matter under the jurisdiction of this committee that may not be on the current agenda. The committee cannot act but will listen to comments and may ask staff to place the issue on a future agenda. The chair may limit the comment period to proceed with committee meeting. I don't think that will be necessary today with two members of the public joining us. The committee will accept public comments online and then in person. And would offer the option of submitting a written public comment to mbcc@mt.gov. The committee would just ask that only one person speak at a time. We'll probably have the meeting manager unmute the mic for the public comment one by one. Please speak clearly so you can be heard and it will register on the recording. AI note-taking tools may not be used until a formal state policy is adopted. Please use full names rather than any acronyms during discussion and presentations. Are there any questions about public comment before we proceed to the committee overview? Hearing none, let's start with the grants assigned to the committee. Kayla, were you going to run those through for us, or how were we going to go through the grants assigned to the committee?
Yes, sir. I can do that. So you guys recall from our June quarterly board meeting, the board decided to update our standing committees. And so from that conversation, the Public Safety Committee is assigned the following grants. You guys have the state grant, which is the Crisis Intervention Team Training Grant, the Burns State Crisis Intervention Grant, the John R. Justice Student Loan Repayment Program, the Burn JAG or the Burn Justice Assistance Grant, which is on the agenda today, and then the Residential Substance Abuse Treatment. Thinking about committee work, now that we have the three main committees, the committee will likely see as we start our kind of journey working together, some common themes in the work. And so identifying strategies to further the board's overall goals and objectives, actively participate in state planning efforts, which Aaron's going to talk about today, contribute and support the efforts to continuously improve the administration of funds. And so there may be processes or procedures that come before the Public Safety Committee brought by staff to help us change or revise or modify how we administer funds. So the committee may see that type of work. And then lastly, the main thing today that the committee will be doing is making funding recommendations. And so the board will be hearing and making those decisions related to the grants that you've been assigned. Mr. Chair.
And with regard to the proportions, so was this committee assigned an equal portion with the other committees or the lion's share? How many of the grants are in our docket?
Mr. Chair, it looks like, so the Public Safety Committee has 5 and the Victim Programs Committee has 5 as well. The
Okay,
Executive Committee isn't, the Executive Committee is assigned the grants that the Statistical Analysis Center coordinates, which is the INSHIP grant. So they have 1, but they have other duties as assigned.
thank you. Knowing that this is a new process, does the committee or do members of the public have any questions about the structure? Hearing none, I'll turn it over to Erin Drynan, the grants coordinator, to give us an overview of the Justice Assistance Grant.
Thank you, Chair. We want to give a just high-level overview of the Justice Assistance Grant today for those who are new to the committee or new to talking about this grant. I will refer to it as the JAG grant because that's less of a mouthful for me as I'm giving you the information. So the JAG grant is through the Bureau of Justice Assistance through the U.S. Department of Justice. And the JAG grant is a formula grant awarded to Montana to be used to hire additional personnel or purchase equipment, supplies, contractual support, training, technical assistance, and information systems for criminal justice or civil proceedings. The JAG formula, how the Bureau of Justice Assistance calculates the amount that Montana is eligible for, is fairly complex. If you're interested in exactly how that works, I do have a spreadsheet that we can share after the meeting. But just know that it starts from Montana's population and share of violent crime, like national violent crime, weighted equally. So that's the starting allocation. And then it goes from there to 60% of that total allocation is administered through the SAA as subawards. The other 40% is money that some local jurisdictions can apply directly to the Bureau of Justice Assistance for. So we are just administering the 60% of the state's total allocation. Does that make sense? Okay. And then within that 60% that MVCC administers, there is a couple of buckets, and I want to touch on this really quickly just because we will be talking about it later. There is just regular pass-through amount, but then there is also what's called a less than $10,000 jurisdiction amount. So that of our total award for 25, here, our total federal award for FY25 is $1,108,170. But of that, there is the less than $10,000 jurisdiction award or pot, which is $178,817. And that money either has to be administered through us to 87 jurisdictions that fall into that category. And so their awards could be anywhere from like $200 to maybe $2,000. Or we can request a waiver from BJA to just add that total money to the pot that we have available to award out under this Justice Assistance Grant funding opportunity. So we are currently in the process. That has been practice, is to request the waiver of those funds. We are in the process of that now that we have accepted the FY25 award. I'm going to stop there and ask if anyone has questions because it's kind of a little confusing.
So Erin, I have to ask, I know our action item is for fiscal 27. What is the status of fiscal 26?
So I'll back up. So our funding recommendation is for our state fiscal 27, which is to be awarded out of federal fiscal year 25 JAG funds. There has not been a federal fiscal year 26 JAG application released by the Bureau of Justice Assistance yet. Is that helpful,
so
or can I expand on that some more?
kind of a state federal lag period is why we're talking about 27.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, and just to clarify that as well, this federal fiscal year 25 funding has been delayed. It was delayed by about 8 months. So normally when we are looking at doing our state funding opportunity for JAG, we do it in early spring and we award at the June board meeting for a July 1 start date. But because of the delay with the federal funds, it's pushed us back by a quarter in terms of our state funding opportunity. So the grants or the awards that we're talking about today will not start until October 1st.
Will it be the same amount just in a shorter period of time, or did we lose that quarter worth of dollars?
We made the decision to keep it as a 12-month funding period. So it will be October 1 through September 30th, and it's the same amount. Yeah, the federal amount has not changed.
Okay, thanks.
And then one other thing that we want to mention is with the JAG grant, when it's awarded to Montana, we are able to draw down all of those funds at once rather than doing it on a reimbursement basis. And when we draw down those funds, they're put into an interest account. So those funds are drawing interest while they're sitting in that account. And then we're able to use that interest income to also award to subgrantees. So you're going to see that language today as we talk about the funding recommendation, then the amount of money that's been added to the total amount that we have to award from STIP funds. Lastly, I'll just mention that our current JAG strategic plan, JAG does require a 5-year strategic plan. And so our current JAG strategic plan prioritizes funding for multi-jurisdictional drug task forces. And that is why the state funding opportunity that we have put out was specific to multi-jurisdictional drug task forces. That was the eligibility criteria for this funding opportunity. Any questions just on the overview of JAG?
Hearing none, could you run us through the funding recommendation portion, Erin?
Yes, thanks, Chair. So the JAG opportunity for our state funding year of 27 opened in May of 26 and closed in June. We had 7 applications submitted. These were the same 7 applicants that we had last year for this funding. All of the applicants are required to include an interagency MOU with at least 5 counties. And a reservation can also count as a county. And then counties can also be part of more than one task force's MOU. So that at the time of application, that requirement was met by all the applicants. All of the applicants also scored the minimum 60% score to be presented to the application review committee for funding. The total amount requested, you can see in the orange column there, was $1,495,057. And then the funding that is available, so this was on the previous page, but I'll just remind you again, the fiscal year 25 funds that we have available to award is $997,353, and that does include that $178,817 that are going to require the waiver. There's also some unawarded funding from the FY24 federal grant, and that was $13,271. There is some investment interest or STIP money available from FY24. That total is $54,957. So that gives us a total available to award of $1,065,581. So as you can see on the left side, those were our 7 applicant agencies. They are either cities or counties, and then also the Montana Department of Justice has 2 applications in, and they are for, under the project title tells you what the name of the task force is that is operating under that applicant agency. Let's see. Let's see that. I can't see that far away and can't read this funky. So the JAG applicants are required to match at 30%. So in the orange column on the spreadsheet, you're going to see what they requested from federal funding, what their required match is, and then what their total budget is. And then we have 3 options for funding. So option number 1 is fully funding requests up to $130,400, which was 4 of the 7 requests. And then it funds the remaining requests at the award that they received last year, that amount, plus the remainder of the available award divided equally. Algebra problems. Calculus? The option 2 is to fully fund the 3 applicants who requested less than last year, because that we feel shows some sustainability for their programs. And then the remaining applicants were funded at, again, last year's award amount plus the remainder of the available award divided equally. And then option 3 funds all of the applicants at 97.67% of their request, up to a limit of $235,000. And just to note that if the waiver for that additional $178,817 is not approved, then we would stick with the same funding option that you choose today, but everyone's award amounts would be reduced by 17%.
And remind me or us of the waiver, what status is that in?
We are just in process. We have to request that waiver once the award is accepted, and we just accepted the award this week. So I was working on that today. And then that goes through the federal grant award modification process. So the timing on that just depends on how long it takes the federal program manager to look at it, move it up the chain for final approval.
It should have no bearing on our decision to choose one of the 3 options.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Before we do public comment, are there any questions from the committee about Aaron's funding recommendation spreadsheet?
None from me, Chair.
Then let's ask folks online, members of the public, do you have any comments regarding this funding recommendation? Ms. Sheriff Hedges or Ms. Ray?
No, sir.
Is there any other public comment online? And
No, Chair.
none in the Montana Board of Crime Control conference room?
No, sir.
Okay, I guess we're ready for an action by the committee. I'd entertain a motion to approve one of the 3 options.
Mr. Chair, I can't find my little hand up button. Permission to speak?
Yeah, Mr. Doan.
A question here for a point of order. Since a couple of these grants go to Department of Justice, should I abstain from voting? Even I have no My day-to-day duties have no influence over how this money's spent or used. I'm on the policy side, not on the fiscal side of how things work at DOJ, but for full disclosure, I want to point that out.
I'm no expert but you've disclosed the potential, and I think that you've met your duty. I also think we'd like to maintain the quorum, and I think we need your vote to maintain the quorum.
That was my count also. That's why I thought I would bring that up at the beginning here. So if no one has a problem with me voting, I will sure do that. And I would make a motion if no one else wants to.
Sure, Mr. Doan.
I move option one. It seemed to me like maybe the most fairest option, given the information.
Is there a second to Mr. Doan's motion for option one?
Chair, this is Kayla Bragg. If it pleases the chair, I can reach out to Cohen if we are concerned about the conflict of interest. I can reach out to Cohen Mercer and see if he could join for a vote.
I don't perceive a conflict, but I don't see any reason not to reach out to Mr. Mercer. In the meantime, Katie, would you like to second the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded for option one. Is there any discussion?
Chair, this is Natalia. I guess I'd like to discuss a little bit the different options. So looking at option one, they're all good options, so that's stuff. I guess I just like to discuss them a little bit more. I was looking at option three mainly because it evenly splits based off of a certain percentage. And looking at each of what everybody would get, everybody would get an increase to last year's award minus 2 who would get their ask. So that seemed fair. I guess maybe this is a question maybe for Alan. But I guess thinking on your thoughts on number one, I guess I'd like if we could discuss that one, and then I can probably be swayed as well.
Mr. Doan?
I'm not sure I understood the question there.
I guess the question is your thoughts behind option number one over the other ones. Or anybody's, I guess, but yours first, since you made the first motion.
Sure, put me on the spot here. I was just looking at the numbers for the requesting and what was being able to fulfill the needs there. I guess that's why I thought option one was the most fair, but I'm not married to any of these. If somebody has a better recommendation, I'm fine with it.
Aaron, what was the rationale for the option one versus three?
So, Chair, option one was just to fully request the 4 that were under that $130,400. I think just looking at the split between kind of the highest and the lowest, we went up to the highest of the low end, and then the remaining ones were funded at last year's, and then with the remainder divided equally. The rationale behind option 2 was to fully fund those who requested less than last year, because sustainability is something that we ask about in our application. And so it seemed like if they were asking for less than they have previously, that they were making moves for sustainability in their project. So those ones were fully funded. The remainder were the balance was funded at whatever last year's award, and the remainder divided equally. When looking at this, basically everybody, their award is, equal to or greater than last year's award, unless they asked for last year or less than they did last year. So seemed to be good options.
And then 3 was just the pure ratio.
Right. And Tammy, if you want to jump on and mention anything, but she did some magic with her percentages and figured out that, at a cap of 235,000, those that had asked for higher amounts, they got that 235. The remainder were funded at the 97.67% of their request.
This is
That's
Tammy
the-
Ferris. In option 1, we divided the total amount award, 1,065,581, by the 7 to come up with an average of 152,225. So that is where in both option 1 and option 2, 130,000 seemed to be a good cap based on those who had asked for much less and those who had asked for way more. And so that was the basis of where the 130,400 came from. That applies in option 1 and option 2. So in option 1, after we got those 4 out of the question, then we had the 3 larger ones. And so how do we divide that fairly? And in option 1 and option 2, it seemed that it would be fair to fund at the same amount as last year's award, plus this is last year's award, plus the difference left over after you take out the amounts for the smaller awards. And the second one was to fully fund those who request less than last year. And then the balance was funded at last year's award again, and the remainder divided equally between those who asked for more than they got last year. And then the final one was just the math. That was, in order to try to get everybody as close to 100% of what they asked, except that there was no way to get the county that asked for $567,000, which was more than half of the ones close to it. 235 was the remainder that could be funded to reach that grand total of 1,065,581. So that's just an explanation of the math for you.
And we don't get direction from BJA about how to allocate or how to award from these 3 options.
Aaron, that
No,
would
Chair,
be
we
a question.
No, Chair, BJA does not weigh in on our subawards and how we award the amounts.
And then as it relates to auditing, as one of the 3 options less susceptible to audit?
Not that I'm aware of, Chair.
Thank you.
Just go on.
Mr. Chair, Cohen Mercer joined us.
Thanks. Mr. Mercer, any thoughts? We have a motion to adopt option 1, and that was seconded, but we're in discussion on all 3 options. Do you have any recommendation?
I mean, can you hear me?
Yes.
I mean, I guess what I noticed there is the Butte one swings more than others, and I guess I would just tend to give preference to smaller places than bigger places. So one's fine by me.
Chair, this is Natalia.
Yeah,
So looking at option one, yeah, so I was comparing just kind of the different columns to each other. So along Cohen's thought, they don't get a whole lot more necessarily than option three, but they do get more the smaller jurisdictions, which I don't think is the worst thing. I think that's probably pretty helpful. And then the ones like 1 through, I'm looking at like rows 1 through 3. They already asked for more money, so I mean they're just a bigger entity. So I think it's probably not as it's not so bad to kind of divvy it up in that way. So I would be okay with option one. I think the only things that I saw were that the ones who were going to get less than their award from last year are folks who actually asked for less. So I think it's okay. So all that to say, I think I am also comfortable with option number one.
is there any other discussion on the motion to adopt option one? Hearing none, let's call a roll call vote.
Okay, roll call vote. And then Alan Doan, Alan Doan, I was going to say just abstain from this. Now we do have a quorum. So when we call a roll, just if you can announce that you're abstaining from the vote.
Okay, thanks.
Chair McAlpin,
Aye.
Katie Campbell,
Aye.
Natalia Bowser,
Aye.
Alan Doan,
Abstain.
Colin Mercer,
Aye.
So the motion has prevailed. We're recommending option one for the funding of this ARC JAG grant. Next item on the agenda is state planning for public safety grants. Is that also Aaron?
It is. Thank you, Chair. Let me just find my correct forms. Are you sharing or? So as I mentioned, the JAG grant does require a 5-year strategic plan, and our current plan that we're operating under is actually 21 through 25. So we have been in the process of updating that strategic plan, and we are following the state planning process that I believe was it presented at the June board meeting. Okay, so it's a bit of a new process that we're following at MVCC to be consistent with the state planning that we do across all of our grants. So I have started this process for public safety grants, and that does include JAG. We have had a series of discovery meetings. So those were held 2 in May, 1 in June, and 1 in July. And you can see on the screen here, we had really good interest in terms of total registrations. But as far as attendees, we had 38 of those registrations who actually attended. We also had an additional 8 attendees who had not registered. So we had a total of 46 people over those 4 meetings, and that's unique individuals. So there were some people who attended more than one meeting, but it was 46 unique attendees across those discovery meetings. As far as stakeholder groups that are represented, it was a nice broad cross section under legal, law enforcement, community services, health and prevention. So you can see kind of a breakdown there of the types of stakeholders that did attend those meetings and provided feedback to us. They were able to provide feedback during the meetings in a variety of ways. So we had some Mentimeters that asked questions and just kind of got poll type information. We also went through some specific discussion questions that they were able to weigh in on during the meetings, but we're also able to provide information in a form as well. And then we also did a survey. So on this next page is just survey results. I'm not sure what happened when it got transferred to into question mark. Yeah, got some interesting formatting in there when it went from Word into PDF. But anyways, these were some of the questions that they were asked about. Stakeholders were asked what crime categories represented the highest concern for their jurisdictions. And those crime categories were based on the NIBRS categories that we report on, that the state reports on to the FBI. So as you can see from the graph there, the highest concern was under the domestic violence area. That includes assault, homicide, human trafficking, kidnapping, and sex offenses. And then violent crime and drug crime were tied at 24%. When we broke that down a little bit more into just purpose areas, JAG has 10 purpose areas. So we asked about what do you think of these purpose areas are things that should be funded, things that are a priority. And the top 3 that came up from those questions were prevention and education programs, law enforcement programs, and mental and behavioral health programs. In between all the upside down question marks and everything, you can see that number 2, law enforcement programs, that was actually the first choice of 32% of the respondents. So I think, you know, our current JAG strategic plan is focusing on law enforcement. Obviously, that's still a top concern as we move forward into the next strategic plan as well. So our plan now is to take information that we've gathered up to this point from stakeholders and to distill that information down more through doing some focus groups. And so we have identified a few focus groups that we'll reach out to, or a few groups that we'll reach out to see if they're interested in doing a focus group. So some of the things that we've talked about are the Montana Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, talking to some criminal justice coordinating councils, such as the Lewis and Clark County Coordinating Council. I had some people reach out afterwards and be interested in hosting focus groups. So one nonprofit up in the Kalispell area has expressed interest in that. So we will be doing some discussion about that to figure out, reaching out to people, scheduling some focus groups to get more information. And from there, we will take that data to start actually developing the strategic plan, which will then come back to the Public Safety Committee for review, conversation, and then ultimately we'll go to the board for approval. So in stages for the next few months, we're trying to get that done.
Kayla, does this strategic plan interact with the board's strategic plan that we're going to work on in September?
Chair, it could, depending on the direction the board goes with setting our agency goals and objectives. Because there could be an agency goal or objective related to state planning or the Justice Assistance Grant in particular. So potentially.
I'm just trying to get my head around how, I assume we have numerous strategic plans in the agency, and I'm wondering how they fit into the broad strategic plan.
Yeah, many of the federal grants do require their own strategic plan. that we submit typically with the federal application. So I think it's a good conversation that we could talk about when the board discusses their strategic goals and objectives for the next year.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Aaron, for us to consider?
No, Chair, no additional information for me. I'm happy to answer questions if anyone else has questions.
Committee, any feedback or questions for Aaron?
Mr. Chair, Alan Doan has his hand raised.
Alan,
I have a question. Can we go back to that circle graph and look at that? It seemed like the domestic violence, human trafficking, I can't remember what all was included in that, but it seemed like that was pretty broad scattering there. Can you comment on that, Aaron, a little bit about why those things were lumped together?
So those, yes, thank you for the question. Those 4 categories are based on the NIBRS data. So those are the 4 buckets that are reported to the FBI. So that's where those buckets come from. And they definitely are very wide, but that's how they kind of lump them together.
Okay, thanks.
any other information, feedback, questions on the state planning for public safety grants presentation? Hearing none, I'll ask for the entire meeting, does the public have any comment on any other matter within the committee's jurisdiction today or in the future?
No, sir.
I don't see any hands raised. I don't think we have any other additional business to attend to, so I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 3:42. Thanks to everyone for your participation.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.